We start with a heavy dose of existential dread to really snap us to attention. I mean, time is flying, and as this poetic quote from Rahat Indori perfectly captures, the year vanishes in an absolute blink. He summarizes the human experience so brilliantly here. Think about it. How often do we make these huge, sweeping resolutions at the start of January, only to turn around and realize, wow, half the year is already gone? The cycle just repeats, our feet tread the exact same paths, and before we know it, December is knocking on the door again. It's a sobering thought, but it's meant to wake you up from that autopilot mode we all fall into. The past is gone. Dwelling on the months that just slipped away, that won't help you at all. What actually matters is the realization that the clock is ticking right now. And this brings us to our exact window of opportunity. 6. You have just 6 months left to completely sever ties with your bad habits and radically upgrade your life. 6 months. That's the magic number we're working with here. According to our source material, more than 90% of people out there are going to spend their next 6 months doing exactly what they did in the last 6 months, which is to say, nothing of substance. But if you make the conscious choice today to put your head down and truly commit to this hard reset, you automatically catapult yourself into the top 10% of action takers. The beauty of a 6-month window is that it's long enough to see a monumental, visible shift in your reality, but it's short enough to keep you urgently focused.
So the crucial point is how we tackle this. Because trying to climb 100,000 stairs, that feels literally impossible. When you look at a massive goal, like a complete life overhaul, it's like staring up at a mountain of steps. Your brain gets completely overwhelmed and you freeze. Honestly, even 10,000 stairs seems incredibly difficult. But taking that first single stair, that is easy, and it immediately puts you in that top 10% we just talked about. The goal is mapped out over 6 months, sure, but the execution relies entirely on taking tiny, manageable steps every single day.
Let's move straight into our first major pillar of this transformation: cutting cheap dopamine.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark boundary it creates. You simply cannot build a new life on top of toxic foundations. You must immediately abandon the life-draining habits to embrace the life-building ones. Those cheap dopamine sources, mindlessly scrolling, eating junk food, constantly checking your messages, they give you instant, unearned pleasure. You get the biochemical reward, but you've built absolutely nothing. Zero. Instead, you have to transition to earned dopamine. That's the deep satisfaction you feel after finally completing a difficult task, the clarity you get from meditation, or the rush from a tough workout. That earned dopamine, that is the required fuel for your 6-month reset. Look at this transaction closely, and I'll say this seriously because nothing in this world is free. Every cheap thrill you indulge in costs a literal piece of your health, your attention, and your future. The speaker urges us to figuratively inject this truth right into our DNA. You might think doom scrolling is just a harmless, free way to pass the time, but the cost is your actual, literal time on Earth. That fast food, it's not just costing you a few bucks, it's aggressively taxing your physical health and your daily energy levels. Every single notification you let interrupt your day is a heavy tax on your focus. And the absolute biggest cost of all, your comfort zone. Staying comfortable right now is paid for entirely by sacrificing your future potential. When you start visualizing your habits as literal transactions, those cheap thrills suddenly seem incredibly expensive, don't they? All right, let's transition our focus from those aggressive cuts to the deep philosophical shifts required in Pillar 2, shedding your old self. Once you've cleared out all that noise, you have to confront the person you currently are. And this phrase right here must become your absolute mantra. What got you here won't get you there. The knowledge, the work ethic, even the circle of friends that brought you to your current level, they have an expiry date. If you want to reach a completely new echelon over the next 6 months, you have to accept that your current inputs are officially obsolete. I mean, think about it. If they were capable of taking you further, they already would have.
And this beautifully connects to nature. Just as trees shed leaves and snakes shed their skin, you must aggressively shed your expired self to make room for new growth. Look at the natural world. In February, trees drop their dead leaves. Why? Because if they hold on to the old ones, there is literally no physical space for the new leaves to bud and grow. Snakes routinely shed their old, restrictive skin just so they can continue expanding. Nature completely reinvents itself every single year. Yet we humans will stubbornly cling to a 5-year-old mindset, reading the exact same types of books, working the exact same way, and somehow expecting a dramatically different result. It's crazy. You simply cannot give birth to a new version of yourself while refusing to let go of the old one.
I want to drill this back into your subconscious visually. You have to upgrade your efforts entirely. This means acquiring skills you've never even attempted before. It means consuming knowledge that currently feels really intimidating. If your standard effort was, say, putting in 3 or 4 hours of work a day, that method is now officially expired. To break out of your current reality, you have to push that to 8 or maybe 10 hours of highly focused work. You have to actively push yourself into areas of deep discomfort, because that discomfort is the exact indicator that you are finally growing beyond your old boundaries.
So the crucial point here is delayed gratification, and it's perfectly mapped out in Deepak's own journey from 2019. The reality is, you will grind internally for months before the world ever sees your explosive external results. The source shares this incredibly personal anecdote. From January to June of 2019, he completely isolated himself. He was sweating profusely in the summer heat, literally working under a blanket to record videos, just grinding day in and day out. And after those brutal 6 months, he had a mere 500 subscribers. To the outside world, absolutely nothing had changed. But internally, he had completely transformed. Because of the rock-solid foundation built in those first 6 invisible months, the following 6 months resulted in an explosion to 1 million subscribers. The lesson here is paramount. In your first 6 months of a hard reset, the changes will be almost entirely internal. You won't get the applause. The world won't notice yet. You are just polishing the foundation. Let's hit this mantra one final time with absolute energy. Until you fundamentally change who you are right now, your reality is going to stay exactly the same. The speaker emphasizes that you should repeat this to yourself 10 times, 100 times a day if you have to. If you don't change, nothing changes. If you refuse to adapt, you will slowly stagnate and basically rot from the inside out. You have to bring a sense of absolute newness to everything you do. Your routines, your daily effort, your environment, the whole shebang. I want to leave you with this provocative final thought to kickstart your hard reset. Look at your habits, look at your current mindset, and ask yourself, what exactly is standing in the way of your greatest comeback? What is that one expired habit or that one ridiculous source of cheap dopamine that is keeping you anchored to your past? Identify it right now, shed it like an old skin, and use these next 6 months to build a reality that will make you completely unrecognizable a year from today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you, take that first easy step up the staircase today.